Hello, everybody, and welcome to our weekly live stream rundown of Claremont County political things going on. It's Tuesday, September 3rd. It's about 7:05 right now, and the topics tonight are going to be talking about the reform event we had on Saturday, the 31st, and the comments that Sheriff Leahy made at the event. Let me bring in one of the panelists, Bill Thomas. It's just you and me, Bill. Louisa's going to be joining us shortly, and we'll pick up with Louisa when she's able to join. How are you doing this evening, Bill?
Good. How are you?
I'm wonderful, except if you saw me in the camera, I forgot to have my Trump hat on, so I had to run downstairs right before this and grab my Trump hat. So let's kind of get into it here. We have tonight, the agenda is to talk about Sheriff Leahy's comments that he made at the August 31st panel that we had at the Miami Township Library. We're going to talk about the top 3 priorities that came out of that meeting of what the Claremont GOP should be focusing on to reform. We're going to look at the totals from last week's rankings of the elected officials at the county level. And then at the end, we'll look at any comments that people have left and do some hot takes on things that are important to us. So that's kind of our agenda. And the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to play. So Sheriff Steve Leahy gave introductory remarks at the panel that we had on Saturday, August 31st, which I think, I speak for Bill, I speak for both of us that we were well pleased that Sheriff Leahy took the time to be part of it, and he made a good contribution in the remarks that he made. So let me go ahead and play Sheriff Leahy's comments. He went way over, and Sheriff Leahy talked for about an hour at the event. And so we had to kind of squeeze in all that we wanted to get done. But we got a shitload of stuff done, I would say, in the time that we had. And so Sheriff Leahy talked for about an hour and took questions. This is just 2 minutes of what he said. I'm going to play a video for you. And then we'll come back and Bill and I will talk about it and give our reactions to what Sheriff Leahy said.
So you may ask, why am I here? I think engagement is good. That's why I'm here. I can't get better. I can't provide a better service by not engaging and communicating with you and citizens, especially those who critique us. I simply can't be living in a bubble of praise all the time. So in politics, we are in constant need of changing, improving, bettering ourselves because our world is always changing. We need to engage different people with different age groups who don't always agree with us on every topic, but that's okay. I think welcoming different ideals and respecting them is important. We should share a common goal and direction. That's why we're here today, to keep our political ideals alive and to move our agenda as Republicans forward. How do we do this? By communicating. What we're doing today, we're communicating. We are sometimes given what I call the best of worst options at the polls. Why is that? Because we have failed to develop qualified candidates. How do we improve this? We must engage, we must recruit better, we've got to get our message out, and we got to listen to different ideals, again, by communicating. I am leaving. When I made that announcement to other county sheriffs, a lot of them said that I was crazy, that I should stay another 3 terms, another 12 years, because a lot of them said they would stay for 20 plus years. But I reflected and I thought I had accomplished everything that I had set to do. I believe in term limits. I don't know if anyone ever saw my first initial announcement that I was retiring, but I believe in term limits because it's just good leaders need to know when to go. Teams thrive when merit is what determines who takes the field, not who is the coach's kid.
So that was his remarks. Bill, since it's you and me right now, give your kind of take on what you thought of Sheriff Leahy's remarks and what you thought some of the key messages were.
Well, I think my opinion of the whole thing is, you don't hear other elected officials talking like that or addressing the public. Steve's comments portray an elected official that is a servant, not somebody that believes they sit on top of the people. He knew it was time for him to move on. It's been a very, very difficult time. Steve has probably had one of the worst terms for sheriff, especially this last term. We've had, I believe, 12 murders or homicides, call them properly, in Claremont County. And last year, we had 2 capital murder cases. So he's had a tough year, and he lost Detective Brewer. So it's been tough. And I believe he recognized that it was time for him to retire. The sheriff's department's in a very good place, and he's leaving it in very capable hands of Chris Stratton, who I believe will resound the same integrity that Steve had. So I'm very, very happy that he picked Chris and not somebody on the inside, that was pushed up through the ropes. Chris has been at the sheriff's department a long time, and he was his chief deputy. So it's the right move.
Well, I thought that I kind of, while I was talking right then, I hadn't done before that, I wrote down what are the key messages that he said. He stressed first, I'm going to number these as I go here. 1, the need to communicate, especially with people that criticize you, which I think all these are good messages. I don't know that we're going to say it's George Washington's farewell address, but I think it's all good messages that you need to communicate, especially with those that criticize you. Politics always needs change, and you need to engage different people. Was the second key message that he said. When you go to the polls, you feel like sometimes you have the best and worst, and that reflects when we have failed to develop candidates. So the need to develop quality candidates. The fourth thing I wrote down is his saying that term limits is that he believes in term limits. And I would say, I do think you're right that he's had a tough term with not because of him, but because of just criminal events going on in the county. But he for a long time was only going to run for 2 terms. So that was his mantra before all those murders and arrests, because I do think he believes in the idea of change. When I've talked with him in the past, I'll be interested what your thoughts are. I think that he's prided himself on, and I didn't put this, wasn't in the 2 minutes, but he said it at one point, is leave it better than you found it mentality of I've improved it from what I inherited, and now Chris Stratton will be the one to improve it to take it to the next level. And I believe that he thinks that that kind of turnover moves things to the next level, that the next guy brings new ideas, better ideas. And inherently, I remember once him telling me that, that one of the things that can happen in law enforcement is you get burned out, but you don't leave. Like you get burned out and maybe it's time, you keep going on, even when it's a very tough job. And maybe you get to a point where it's not the right thing. And that's when you make mistakes, is when you're burned out, but you're stayed in law enforcement. And I put that with the term limits. And then the 5th point that was in there was that things should be based on merit, not who's the coach's son. So if people really wanted to take that and boil that down, and I just wrote that down while he was talking. Well, I had not done it beforehand. Those, I think, are 5 pretty powerful messages that are being sent through Steve Leahy. I don't know, he's a careful guy, but communicate with those that criticize you. Politics always needs change and to engage different people. We get the worst when we fail to develop candidates. There should be self-regulating term limits. You got to know when to go, and things should be based on merit, not who's the coach's son. So those 5 points. So let me flip it back to you, Bill, with any thoughts you have on any of those points, or what stood out to you in those points.
I mean, nothing that I don't have anything to add that I've already said. I mean, I've always thought highly of the sheriff's department. I know you've had different opinion on this, but I do believe the sheriff's department is a separate entity. It's not swamped in with some of the other departments. I believe there's a lot of contention, even though it's not published, it's not spoken of. But I do believe there's contention between the prosecutor's office and the sheriff's department. I believe that some of the older people in the county probably don't appreciate the way Steve and Chris probably play politics, the way they deal with it. Chris Stratton resigning because Chris didn't really care. Chris doesn't care about politics. He's going to do what's right, and not being a part of that culture, he was done. So, again, I think Steve has a level of maintaining political politics and his views on politics. Stratton is in another level than Steve. I don't think Stratton looks at the politics at all, whereas Leahy does consider some of the politics. Stratton's not going to care. I resigned. Am I going to get elected? He doesn't care. He's looking at the integrity part of it 100%. He doesn't care about the politics behind it. So I think there's some difference. And I think Steve knew going in that Chris would take the sheriff's department to that next level, which is where it needs to be. There doesn't need to be any politics involved in the sheriff's department. They're representing all of the residents of Claremont County.
I think I've always said the same thing too. And could you made a comment about what my view was of them is I think the best hope currently, I think in any county, the prosecutor and the sheriff's office should be above the political hackery. And as it is in our county, and I'd be interested in any take you have on this, Bill, is in our county, the sheriff's office for the foreseeable future is the best hope for, integrity, moving our county forward, showing the kind of integrity and character that we should expect to see from all of our elected leaders.
I think that people are political. So I would, Leahy is a Republican. But his job, he doesn't allow his Republican ties to influence him doing the job for everybody in the county. I don't think that exists with Democrats. I think Democrats, maybe the moderates perhaps, but the more liberal, far left Democrats, as you see in Hamilton County, that whole fiasco of lesbian becoming sheriff, she did that because she was terminated for rightful reasons. And she came in, and Charmaine, I think's her name. She came in, and the way that sheriff's department's run, a lot of people, from people I know that are in Hamilton County, they don't want to be a part of sheriff's department. So I think it's important. You can be rooted in your values and that you're conservative, but you've got to be able to run the department neutrally. And I think that, in Claremont County, I think we do a very good job of that. Hamilton County is an example of a liberal running the sheriff's department that allows her liberal views to run rampant in her decision making and screwing up the department.
Well, I don't think, though, in Hamilton County, before we move on, there's more and more people now, Democrat Jim O'Neill, who was the sheriff before, I think that he had a pretty good reputation. And if you remember, he got in trouble for supporting Trump when it was as a Democrat. Right. And so it seems like now it'll be interesting to see what happens in Hamilton County, because I think he's running again.
Right.
And it's interesting to see a lot of Democrats in Hamilton County saying we made a mistake by, getting rid of these guys, getting rid of him in favor of whatever her name is that took over.
Let's hope so, because with Dusty Rhodes, there's another example. He was a Democrat, but he was more or less very conservative minded. Right. So hopefully, Jim can get put back in there and we can bring some normalcy back to Hamilton County.
Well, in this era, we need Democrats. We see it now in Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. We need Democrats, and we need some Republicans to come back to the point of character. Mm-hmm. So moving on, in the event we had on Saturday, there were we came up with 6 kind of areas that Dennis Cooper, and thanks to Dennis Cooper for being on the panel, you, Bill, and me, we came up with 6 areas, and then 3 of them got prioritized as the top 3 areas in need of action or reform. And one was, these are not, the first 3 are not, they all were, the ones towards the top were all kind of the same, like the amount. We had a prioritization process where the audience could basically put money into bags for each of these. And the top 3 all came out relatively the same in terms of the amount of money that was put in their bags. The first one, one of the top 3 was authentic voter outreach and engagement, actually engaging voters in positive ways, not just handing them something or mailing them something, having things like potentially having candidate guides, having meet the candidate nights, having community forums on important issues. So that was item number one. Let me hit the top three, Bill, and then I'll come back and we can add points on each of them. The second one was following the Constitution and fixing meetings. This was Dennis Cooper's number one thing. And is that as long as we have a central committee that does not follow the Constitution, does not follow Robert's rules, and there isn't the character within it to say that, for example, even if I disagree with the motion somebody's trying to make, they have the right to make a motion as a member. That we're not going to get ahead. We got to fix this. And right now it's kind of a tyranny that takes place. And then the third of the three items that were prioritized to act on was improving central committee member quality. And it's kind of combines is that there has to be ethical, competent, engaged members of the central committee. It can't be made of a bunch of people that only show up on endorsement night. It can't be made up on a bunch of people that are okay with changing the rules and suspending the Constitution. So there needs to be an effort to improve the quality of central committee members. So let me come back. I'll put the first one up, Bill, the authentic voter outreach and engagement. Just kind of want to get your comments on each of these, or what you thought, or what they meant to you, and were they, maybe even before that, were you happy with what came out as the top three items?
Yeah, I wish that involving school boards would have been higher up priority, but it wasn't. But yeah, I think that we had to have three top ones, and I think they're great. If we don't reach our voters, then we're not growing the party. And we've seen nothing but a decline in the party voting. I did a spreadsheet years ago, and this was back then, and it was, I believe, like a 62% drop in Republican voters in a primary. And that speaks.
By the way, that was not really real per se. What that was the 2016 Trump primary. The turnout was abnormally large for a primary. And so those were a bunch of people that never voted in primaries. And what happened is they went right back to never voting in primaries, and it dropped back to its historic level. The thing, by the way, the tragedy of what you're bringing up is that we did nothing to try to convert those Trump 2016 primary voters into long-term participants within the Republican Party. And they all just went away again. They came up, they showed up for that primary, and then they disappeared after that. And
I compared it to
the numbers.
I compared those numbers to the 2020 primary, which, again, I do agree with you. There were a lot of screwed up things that happened in 2020, Frank LaRose and canceling and moving dates, and our primary date became a moving target, which was absolutely ridiculous. It was a mess. So I maybe the numbers are off, but I mean, it was 62%. Let's say that my margin of error is 50%. That's still, even 25% drop is a lot to lose.
There's no question. If you look at that, one thing I think, beyond the numbers, we are in a declining state of Republican primary voting. It's a long-term problem. And one of the most, if you don't believe any other problem, one of the problems is that voters are dying off. A lot of the people that have been, somebody said to me one time, and I don't mean to sound morbid or bad, but one of the things that, beyond anything else, that, for example, causes some candidates, I won't mention a candidate name, is to have struggle more winning, is because their voting base is actually dying off, from term to term. So on the three items, I'm going to pop up the first one. Do you have any comments you want to make on, any of these three? So the outreach, the fixing the meetings, or the quality of members? Pick one. You can go wherever you want, Bill, with what you want to talk about.
So I have a nickname for Jeff Corcoran. I don't use it online a lot, but I call him Flapjack Jeff. So Flapjack Jeff believes that this pancake breakfast is, well, I don't think he believes it, but he pitches that it's supposed to reach out to outreach to the voters. That absolutely is not the intent of this. This is an intent to drive money towards the Republican Party, which he puts on his list of accomplishments of, my flapjack breakfast last time brought, $40,000 or whatever the number is. And we want to do more this time around. here's the kicker, and you've said this 100 times, and I've said it a dozen times. Why drive all this money if you're not going to spend it to support quality conservative candidates? Why the hell are we raising all this money and not spending it to support candidates? Is beyond me. I don't know what they're, raising all this money for, but it should be, looking at this, they forgot to put the date and time on the flyer.
Well, hold on a second. Since you mentioned this, I think I can do this. I'm going to share the screen because you must have noticed that, you saw it in the flyer or you saw it in me posting it. Let me see if this works. Okay. Yeah. They just came out with the flyer for sponsors. When is the event? Like the
I don't know.
The event's in September sometime. Okay.
Yes.
But they just came out with the flyer for sponsors. And let me see if I can click on this and it'll go bigger. Okay. And the flyer for sponsors omits the date and time of the event. It says, call me down there, not like who to call. Call me if you have questions. And it's just like, who the hell makes this stuff? And even better, this is a good example of, did anybody check it? Did anybody read it and say, does it make any sense?
Do you know why? So you and I have been in business a long time. An example of this. So last time we had the pancake breakfast, it was an absolute disaster. All the workers will tell you it was a mess. Tables were a mess. And maybe it was 2 times ago. And last one was a little better. I think it's 2 times ago. It was an absolute utter disaster. And I suggested to them they need what's called a lessons learned meeting, where they, after the event, they need to all get together and do a lessons learned. So they did schedule something like that, but the meeting wasn't ran to really drive what we could really do better. It was really what was in Corcoran's head and what he wanted to talk about. The people, what's important in a lessons learned meeting is that you hear from the people that are a part of the implementation, that you get the feedback so that you can properly address it. Survey cards to the people, the attendees, or mail them out, whatever. Put it out on your Facebook page. There's 100 ways to drive feedback to feed into a lessons learned meeting. And if you're not doing those things, that's all part of voter outreach. If people don't believe that their voice is being heard, they're not going to be part of the party, especially a party that's being ran into the ground right now. So I think it's terrible that we're now on our Flapjack Jeff is on his 3rd Flapjack breakfast, and we're still in 101 state where we don't even know that we're putting the time and date of the event on there. Like that's absolute. Does anybody look at these things? So the point is, nobody ever wants us involved in these events. I've never been invited to really do anything high level. You get somebody like Mike Logue that runs this, and Mike's a military guy, but when it comes to Mike is not a business guy. He's just not. So you're going to put probably the least qualified candidate person to run this thing because of what reason? And you and I know the reason, but you and I would have done something like this, and there would have been checks and balances. The event, the date, all that would have been checked. It would have went through the committee and had about 10 sets of eyes on it before it was released to the public. Because that's
so we. The thing about it is that I just looked on the GOP website and it's the 28th. Okay, 28th at 9 a.m. And for example, the flyer says there's a VIP reception. Was that before? When do I got to show up? Like 6:30? Any event. But you're kind of hitting, just to bring us back here, authentic voter outreach. This pancake breakfast is not authentic voter outreach.
That's right.
It's a fundraiser. Okay,
that's right.
It's a fundraiser for insiders. It's not authentic voter outreach. In fact, on the website, on the Claremont GOP's page, I don't mean to go into, la la land on this topic, but since you brought it up, this is the Claremont GOP's webpage, and let me go into this. Okay, so it says at the top of the post, members/Republican elected officials. Okay, so that's who's invited, I guess. Members and Republican elected officials, versus anybody. Bring mom, bring dad, bring anybody interested. And it doesn't mention Trump one time in this whole thing. But I don't want to. We're kind of going on. I love the point, but we're kind of going, down the rat hole on that. And but you kind of hit on the key points of that relates to engagement. Another key point relates to the organization of the committee, and the third key point relates to the committee members. I'm going to bring Louisa in here because she's here.
Hi, guys.
And I don't know how much she's listened up to this point, but on those 3 points of committee, the committee, quality of the committee members, quality of the meetings and following meetings, and the engaging, we hit on the engaging pretty quick of just a very present in our minds, Bill, thing of an example of screwed up engagement. But let me let you guys, Louisa, is there one of those 3 that you want to hit on?
I'm sorry, which 3 are you talking about? Sorry, I just had some technical difficulties.
Okay, the 3 that were prioritized that were the top things from the meeting on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, definitely candidates. I think we need to get some good, solid candidates with integrity and transparency and hardworking candidates. I think that's my main focus is the committee. If we don't clean up the committee and we don't have good leadership, we have very poor leadership as it stands. If we don't clean that up, then you cannot move forward. You cannot move forward in this county.
Okay, so those were the items. By the way, the other 3 items, because then I want to move us on here, of accountability ratings of elected officials was one of them. Change primary endorsement to be after the filing deadline, and then get involved in school board elections. I know, Bill, you mentioned that you would have liked to see school board, but actually I think it came out right because you have to fix those first 3, and then these things would become the priorities. If you don't fix the first 3 of the outreach and engagement, the meetings, and the quality of central committee members, these things you're never going to get anywhere on.
I can
Any
see
comments on these?
I think it's extremely important to get involved in the school board elections. I mean, that's our future. If we do not get Republicans into school boards and we don't lead the way with our kids, then we're going to lose it. We're going to lose it as a country.
Right. I watched this from Claremont County 6-7 years ago when I really got engaged in politics. Republicans still had a pretty much good run on the county. It had swamp issues, but it's still, Claremont County was relatively very conservative still. I have watched Claremont County, and specifically Milford, Miami Township, and what's beginning to happen in Union Township more and more. I have watched it completely turned. A lot of people don't know and understand this, but issue 1 and the pot issue both were voted in favor of in Miami Township. So and in Union Township. So I have seen our biggest areas in our county transfer over, and a lot of this is because our schools are attracting liberals. I'm not talking Democrats. A lot of people think, when I'm sitting here dogging liberals and Democrats, are this synonymous. They're not. Moderate Democrats are relatively, we fundamentally don't agree on a lot of things when it comes to like abortion and what's a human rights issues, what's not, death penalty. But we typically cohesively exist, and we run the country well together if everything's functioning. It's these extremists and these liberals. These aren't Democrats moving into Miami Township. These are far left nut job liberals. All you got to do is go look at the Milford. So guys, I want to bring us back, and I'm going to move us on. The meeting on Saturday, I just want to remind us, we prioritize 3 things. Now we're talking about nut jobs moving into Milford, okay? But authentic voter engagement, following the Constitution and fixing meetings, which we haven't really talked about, and improving our central committee member quality. And I made the comment that we have to fix these. The reason I think those came out demonstrably higher to the audience than these 3 things was because if we don't fix those first 3, then these 3 we can't act on. And we've seen that. I think we're all in agreement that we should get involved in school board elections.
but we can't do that the way the committee's operated today, because
Exactly.
it can't engage. If you can't engage people other than political insiders, if you can't run a fair meeting, and if you can't, hold on, let me go back here. And if you have central committee members that are of low quality, don't show up to meetings and seem like zombies when they're in the meetings, you can't get to getting involved in school board elections. You might go through the motions, and I think we saw that in some of the meetings. You know, what's his name? Who was a gentleman in the committee that was kind of taking the lead on it? Randy Klein would get up and talk about it, but nothing was really. You were doing some stuff, Bill, but there wasn't anything really being done as an organized central committee on these.
Well, our central committee doesn't get behind school boards, just like it doesn't get behind issues.
I talked to Jeff multiple times about getting the central committee involved in that, and it was denied. Same thing with Greg Simpson. When Greg Simpson was the chair, I talked to him. The central committee, like you said, the central committee leadership is a disaster, and we're never going to change anything until that we target that.
And so I want to keep bringing us back to these three things, because I think the prioritization was good, and you know that you got to have real outreach, not baloney pancake breakfast to make money. That's a fundraiser. The fundraisers aren't outreach. Okay, fundraisers raise the money to do outreach. So you have to fix the meetings and follow the Constitution, which doesn't happen today at all. And you have to give central committee members that care. And I want to add something. When you said, like, one of you made a comment that made me think of this, is I think that what people shy away with, a low quality central committee members, shies away from any hard work, you know, and they really don't do anything. And so, for example, the school board one, which you guys we're all very passionate about, that would involve some real hard work and needing to really think, not just, you know, phone it in and have some goofball flyer or something. So that's any final comments on this before we move on to the hot takes part of the agenda and the results from last week?
The central committee is a snowball of effects. So if it's not happening in the central committee with the leadership, then it's not happening anywhere else.
Bill, any final comments on the meeting?
No, I don't want to get worked up with the way the central committee is being ran right now. But I mean, it all points back to the leadership. I mean, it's the reason we're all three here right now.
Well, and that's the reason why, you know, the new word reform, you know, and so I just wanted to throw up here real quick. This is the results from last week, assuming I didn't make any computation errors. Some people have asked me about putting these out, like the totals. And down in the lower right, this has all four of how we've prioritized our county level elected officials. And there's some that have a green line, have some green on them. And so just to keep it simple here, here's the politicians, the county elected officials or soon to be elected officials that had any green, which meant they had a C or above in any category, were David Painter, Linda Fraley, Jeannie Zoomerly, Chris Stratton, and Paul Camphouse. And the ones that did not have a 2 or higher in any category were Claire Corcoran, Bonnie Batchelor, Mark Tacalvi, and Alan Freeman. Okay. So you guys, just to take real quick here before we move on, any comments on that? Now that you see it in hindsight, think we made any big mistakes, or you're good with the way we ranked them last week?
I think that we should review this in 3 months and see if the other candidates have watched our podcast and maybe make some changes.
Bill, any comment?
The prosecutor's office can't get any worse. I mean, it's at a 0. So,
they have 0. No, he's got a 0.33, so he can get worse.
That's an innovation.
All zeros.
I'm talking about well, that's your fault. You're the one that gave him a D.
I gave him the highest score. I gave Mark Tacalvi, if you're out there, anybody from the office, know that Chris Hicks gave you the highest score of any of the 3.
Hell's gonna freeze over.
I always knew Chris Hicks was the prosecutor's office.
I'm a plant. I'm a secret plant for the prosecutor's office. It's all been a 8-year strategy to get to just this point. So
that's how you know so much.
Did you guys not to go? You guys ever see the movie Salt with Angelina Jolie?
Yeah.
Where she was like embedded for her whole life and then activated to do. I'm going to be activated. I'll hear Mark Jacoby's voice and be activated. Okay, so that was the things, and hopefully shortly, I've asked Bill and Louisa to look at what I put together the summaries. I just want to make sure I didn't make a mistake. So hopefully they won't find a mistake, and then when I'll put them out there on the Facebook page. And then if we find a mistake after that, it is what it is. We all tried.
I think it's right.
Okay, so the last kind of thing I want to do here, I don't think we have any chat comments. Sometimes the chat comments don't work. I've observed with this, but we don't have any chat comments right now. And the last thing is normally at the end, we kind of do any hot button topics that are bothering any of us or that we want to just highlight and react to any chat comments that have come through. So let's go. Who would like to go first with any hot button issue that they would like to bring up? 30 seconds or less.
A records request. I'm still waiting on my audio records request from my hearing. It's going to be 3 weeks. I understand that they have 30 days, but come on. I mean, it was just one hearing on that day. I mean, it can't be that hard. And I know other people that have been trying to get records requests for their cases in our county right now. And again, they're getting the runaround. Also, records requests to the Central Committee. Before I've asked for a insurance copy of our insurance and got denied it. I had to go a different way to get it. And I also asked for the sign-in sheets and have been denied it. So I guess I'm going to have to go another way and get it.
So there's two things you're hitting on there. One is governmental records, and other is party records, which you're a member of the Central Committee and should be able to get.
Right.
And on the governmental records, I think you're specifically talking about, in case anybody's listening from the municipal court, Louisa made a request following your own process where you have to fax in the request, which is asinine, which is completely asinine. A normal citizen, only lawyers have fax machines. I have one, but only lawyers pretty much have
I had to print the document, go online, print the document, fill it out, then go to UPS, fax it through, and now I'm still waiting.
So, by the way, the reason it's called public records that every elected official should remember is because the record belongs to the public. That's who owns the record, not them. And so when the public wants to see the records of their own government, it shouldn't take 3 weeks and you shouldn't have to use a fax machine. All right, Bill, do you have a hot take item?
I think that we need to start doing clips of different things going on in the county, like the Pierce Township thing. I don't know if people have watched it, but we have these little things, little pocket issues, and these people they're all webbed, interweaved together on the back end. But just listening to Pete Kembelos, when Alan Freeman looks at you and tells you that you have an integrity problem, that says something. Because Alan has flat out looked at me and lied to me. When we were trying to get rid of corporate. So, both of the other trustees looked at him and said, "This is a problem. Like, seriously."
So what Bill's talking about, for people that might not know, is that Pete Campbellis got caught on a body cam, and then I put out the full body cam, not just what the reporter put out, basically saying, if it's the last thing I do as a trustee, I'm going to get this citizen. We need to write him up on everything we can, and the citizen might be a pain in the ass, right? But that's not the way anybody in elected office should be talking about a citizen. And it puts the police person in a very awkward position where they're feeling like the trustee is telling them, you have to write this person up. When you want the police to do it fairly, be fair about the whole thing.
It's almost like when Michael Lowe got involved in the check writing thing, and there were text messages between
him and Tony Reese. Yeah.
Inappropriate for a trustee to get involved in police business in any form or fashion.
So that's your hot take, is we got to get there's all these things going on, and I appreciate when reporters cover these things at all, because we don't have much of any news media in Claremont County. And what I'm hearing a little bit from you, Bill, is maybe we can in some way be part of improving people knowing about these things going on.
I think we need to incorporate that into this so that people know. People don't know about this stuff that's going on. And when you watch it, you're just looking at, like when you watch the Simpson video, Nobody's going to sit and watch an hour and a half of Greg Simpson lying. But if you clip it and turn it into like a 1 minute clip of Greg Simpson's best moments, I mean, you know, or we could turn it into America's Funniest Home Videos, whatever you want to do. But, yeah, I mean,
you know, it'd be funniest to have a show called America's Funniest Political Videos.
Yeah,
just bullshit and Kamala Harris changing her accent every event she's at.
I think Daily Wire does it. Real quick, Chris. Real quick, Judith asked a question. So Judith,
yeah, I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna put that up in a second. Okay.
Okay. Because I want to address.
And I'll make my hot take, and then we'll look at any comments. There's one right now. I'm gonna put it up in a second. I'll just go off of what Louisa was hitting on the party records, the hidden roster. That people are told that ask for the roster. By the way, if you know anybody in the committee, I'm sure they just blast you the roster, right? You know, it's of who's on the Central Committee for clearance. But then somebody comes and asks the party secretary and told, you're not allowed to have it, when it is a public record. It is a governmental public record, and that is absolutely ridiculous. And it just says something about the secrecy around it.
What are they hiding? I want to know what they're hiding. What is it?
Well, they don't want these people. Frankly, I feel like you've got people on the Central Committee that don't want the voters in their own precincts to know who they are.
Why?
And then you've got people in leadership that are afraid, oh my God, what if actual citizens engage with these people?
Well, then they shouldn't be representatives in the committee. Then they need to go. You know,
no. You guys are completely off here. The problem is it's Jeff Corcoran's height. So he's very small. It's a Napoleonic complex. I mean, kind of half joking, but being serious. I really believe, because some of the things that they've told people no on is absolutely stupid. Like telling somebody you can't have the roster that's just somebody saying, I want to be able to tell somebody no, and I want to show everybody I'm in control. There's no other reason to deny.
I agree.
Right.
I'm sorry. I agree.
Because you know full well that there's other people, if they ask for the roster, no problem. Here you go.
Yeah, if you're in the,
it's very selective.
Well, remember, Mr. Corcoran only does things to people he likes, not the ones that he doesn't like, or the ones he loves.
I would appreciate more if you were going to withhold the roster from people, that you would just put in the email, we don't like you, so we're not giving you the roster.
Yeah. I mean,
Good luck trying to find it.
He said
versus
it to my
some
face.
Bullshit that it's some sort of secret governmental record that can't be revealed.
It didn't affect me much when he told me he didn't like me, because guess what? The feeling has been mutual for a very long time, and I cannot even say that I don't like him. I despise him. So the feeling is very mutual. But you know what? Be honest at least, have a little bit of...
So there's one comment Bill referred to. I'm going to put it up here, and it's Judith Kelch, who's on the committee, says the chairman is elected the first night when most people are new, and so you don't know a lot of times who you're voting for. Past time, James Kidwell endorsed Jeff and Bryant. Endorsed Jeff. So Jeff got elected unopposed, right, to Central Committee chair.
No, Chris, let me have this one.
Okay.
None of that's true. What actually happened, Judith, is James Kidwell and I both were pulled in by Linda Fraley to make sure that the opposition was quieted. That's a true statement. There were other people interested in running the committee, but they were quashed because, James called, I made phone calls, maybe Linda had other people I'm not aware of make calls. This is all true stuff. Jeff and David Carter were selected by Fraley to run the Central Committee in the GOP, period. And I was starting to think David Carter was swamped in to do it because they knew Jeff would just be railroaded by Jeff and David Carter be quiet. David Carter, I've never seen him at a committee meeting. He's been on the committee for years.
Well, he had like a health issue. I don't know what his health is, but
I'm talking about prior to the health issue.
Yeah.
Where's he been the last 5 years?
Hold on a second. What about David Taylor? I've been on the committee for 6 years. I've never seen David Taylor.
I'm talking about why we elected. The question is, why did we elect these two? We elected two people. Jeff Corcoran, I've never seen him go to committee meetings. I don't think he was on the Central Committee, but he didn't come. No. So we basically put two people over the Central Committee and the GOP that had almost no experience. Right. So we were told to make sure that those are the two people that got in. So we called and we started making calls to all the committee members and saying, hey, you need to vote for Jeff Corker. You need to go to David Carter, blah, blah, blah. So how you eliminate that, Judith, is very simple. You keep people like Linda Fraley out of the Central Committee, and you quash these little factions that come up. That's how you do it. And so we need to get good quality people on the Central Committee. They're not tied into these groups.
And Judith, before Jeff got onto the Central Committee, it was also pre-planned at the Goshen Township meeting that I was very much present and saw how everything was aligned for Mr. Jeff Corcoran to be elected the vice exec of Goshen, so that in turn he then could become the chair. So it was already all pre-planned.
So in all this, I want to add one final thought to what you guys have said, is that I think it's really important, if you are not on Central Committee and at some point, it's 17 months or so away from the next election, if you get on Central Committee, come in jaded. Come in jaded. Do not get fooled by these people. What happens is there's 30 to 40% turnover every time. And what happens as a result, the people that come in, the 30 to 40% brand new people, they get suckered for a while by the people that have been there forever. The Linda Fraleys of the world think, oh yeah, these are great people, God-loving people, fantastic people. Then usually about 2 years into it, they realize, what in the hell? I got totally railroaded by these people. And so when you come in, because you need to know that most everything, you're fighting an uphill battle, because right from the beginning, there are people that have been around. Clearly, Linda Fraley does not believe in any sort of term limits other than, so that have been around forever, and their age and guile overcomes your youth and enthusiasm, and they know how to play you. They've been through it before again and again, and they make sure that on that it's a good point that Judith made, is that people don't know. She made another comment here, is people don't even know these people at the time they're voting. That they're voting on this leadership. Frankly, wouldn't it be great to have a platform, a constitution that said that the leadership got like a year, and after a year there was a revote on the leadership or something, or even 6 months, like they were hired on a provisional basis. So then if they're not delivering, they have to basically get reelected 6 months after that first meeting.
Yep, I agree.
So
as I told you both, I will never share the text messages I have between all these insiders, because I think that's an integrity problem. But I have no problem reading a couple. So one of the things, just to kind of give you what goes on in the mindset of these insiders, this is a message. This was back in January of 22. This was when Tim Rudd was going against Linda Fraley for being endorsed. Linda Fraley did not get, if you guys remember, she did not get endorsed for her office in the GOP when she ran against Tim Rudd. She was short. It was all lies. People don't know what I do. Primaries are expensive. Still deciding what to do. That is a flaky group, as you know. So her comment was the Central Committee's flaky because they didn't endorse her. That's because that's their mindset. Their mindset is, and if people knew some of the stuff that these elected officials said about them in that Central Committee, probably half of them would resign, because they would it would like blow their mind of what's said about them.
Right.
My point is, these are not good people. They're just not good people.
So
I was snowed over by them. I'm not going to sit here and try to play it any other way. Even James Kidwell will tell you he was snowed over, because Kidwell and Fraley, they're not on terms either. On good terms.
Well, that goes back to this one, central member quality. And one of the discussions in the thing, people would talk about understanding Robert's rules and all that kind of stuff. And you have to do that. You have to understand the basics. But you also have to have people that are of character in it. And it doesn't take a deep understanding of Robert's rules to understand when you're sitting there and the chair selectively allows certain people to make motions and other people are not allowed to make motions, that is wrong.
Well,
you don't have to sit there a long time to realize when the chair says he will legally defend people that assault other people in the meetings that he likes, but not those that he doesn't like. That is wrong. That is morally, ethically wrong.
He can't even see the conflict of interest there. And you know what? That leads me to believe that he's not a Republican, because that's how a liberal thinks. Can't even see a conflict of interest and being biased. I mean, he holds the chair, okay, of this committee. He's got the seat, but yet when he chooses and he wants to pick who he wants to defend because he's an attorney.
All right, we're getting closer. It's 50 minutes right now. I want to wrap it up. Any other quick takes before we call it a night?
Yep.
Where we're trying real hard. For those of you that have come to me and asked me, can't you get it shorter? We're getting ready. Bill and I are going to start a new set of Facebook pages about the length of the call. Because we're trying, folks. We're trying to get a little shortened up here. So
right. I know it's tough to get short when there's so much going on. It's really tough to condense it all into an hour. It just is. I mean, this discussion about the nuts and bolts of what's wrong with Central Committee it's a very, very deep problem. And when you look at I can give you several examples. I'll make it very quick.
Yeah.
When Nathan wasn't endorsed the first time against Anita Beckman, Gene Schmidt's comment to me was, he's put his time into the Central Committee, he should be endorsed. No, that's how we're screwed up. That I tried to make these people understand that's not how it's supposed to be. I'm not saying Nathan's a bad guy, but I'm saying it's like hiring somebody because they're black. It's DEI. It's like the conservative version of DEI.
Right.
It's the loyalty.
It's cronyism.
Exactly. We should not care about how loyal they've been to the party. Can they do a better job than the other people that are up? Yes or no? Period.
We should have an Zip recruiter,
Well, if somebody walks in the door that had a high degree of skill, we should be, and what's going to be, you could tell is going to be fantastic, okay? They should be treated fairly. The way it is right now, they would not be part of the crony system. And Jesus Christ could walk in the door saying he wanted to run for some office, and he would be rejected because he's not part of the crony system.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We should have our own Zip recruiter. So like that, people apply. They have to go through the first set of questions, like fill out questionnaires and things like that, before they even get accepted into the next step, right? That's what we should have, not based on what your relationship
I think the bigger thing, Louisa, than that we screen people better is that people of merit feel like they can even come forward and be treated fairly.
Exactly.
And be judged. It's not necessarily a big stack of paperwork like this, But if they come in and they have the best ideas, they have the best platform, they have the best this, that they can be treated fairly. In right now, if Jesus Christ got up there and wanted to run for auditor against Linda Fraley, Linda Fraley's block of votes would vote against Jesus Christ.
I wonder,
because Jesus Christ wasn't part of the crony system.
I just had a thought about Judith. Judith has another comment up, and I have a thought on that. Why don't we as a Central Committee, before the election of the new Central Committee members, do a county convention? If you're going to run for Central Committee, meet the candidates, and we host it at the Holiday Inn so that everybody gets to meet those candidates, and the people that don't show up or meet their people in their public or their townships or whatever, that should be broadcasted to the public. Hey, your person running your precinct didn't show up. Or try to find somebody else, have a convention for people to come in and learn how to run. But
I'll make it simpler than what you're saying is, have an event just to teach people what Central Committee is,
right?
How to get involved. And then here's the big missing link of the crony system is there has to be a way for people to participate who are not on Central Committee. Because the way the party is right now, if you're not on Central Committee, there's virtually no way to participate. And whether that's having at-large Central Committee meeting members,
you can't even participate
having a vibrant club.
Member. You can't even participate if you're a committee member. Well, if
you're a committee member, you're not. I can't. I'm not. What's funny is, Louisa, is it's very clear to me that I'm not allowed to participate because there typically be, somebody's gonna call the cops if I utter a word in a meeting.
Right.
You, on the other hand, you're still led to believe a little bit that you're allowed to participate, but we see whenever you try to talk that you're not actually allowed to participate. So, all right, Bill, you started to say something.
Well, I was going to say, unless you're on Flapjack Jeff's list of approved people, then you get whatever you want.
All right, let's leave it at that for tonight. Thank you guys for participating tonight. Thank you those who watched and offered a few comments. And we will see you next week. And every week, just so you know, we want comments. We want to talk, in chat. We're also trying to make sure we keep this within a little bit less time so that people can digest it and focus in a little better. Thank you, guys. Thank you, panel. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Louisa. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Thank you.
And we will see you next week.